back to Better You. I'm your host, Cynthia Thompson, and I'm here with a dear friend of mine that has a wonderful organization. But I'm going to let him tell you all about that. Thank you for joining me today, William Blackshear.
Well, I appreciate you calling me, Cynthia, asking me to come on the show. It's always a blessing to come on the show and share what God has done for me in the community after years of struggle in my own life, to try to give people inspiration of letting them know that life is never over with, no matter what struggles that you come from. And today I'm going to talk about Project Restoration and what led me up to having an organization that's a nonprofit that's called Project Restoration. I grew up in New York, and as you know, when we grow up in families, if people don't know, there's dysfunctions.
This is true.
Dysfunctions, and not just dysfunction, but also generation of curses that's passed down from other family members that didn't get things right in their life. Unfortunately, there was family members that I guess did not even turn their life over to God or work on issues that they had. So birth in the world was William Michael Blackshear, which is me. Being born into a family with 8, it came a lot of struggles. There was a lot of abuse, physical and sexual abuse in my home. My dad was somebody who grew up with 16 kids in his family.
16?
So you could just imagine with 16 people in his family, the chaos that they had to go through and the bickering and probably the jealousy and this and that. So I don't know what made him be the dad that he was with me that didn't turn out to be a good dad. And what I mean by that was I remember times in my life that if I did things wrong, my dad was the type of dad who would strap me and tie me to a bed and beat me, naked with an iron cord, skin coming off my back. Times when he would allow me to go to bed for the whole weekend without feeding me. This was his form of punishment. And just a lot of stuff that one would say to themselves, did this man ever love me? I mean, that was a question that I wrestled with all my life in the home. I never heard him say he loved me.
Well, can you imagine being in a house with 16 or 15 other people?
Right.
You would probably get lost in the shuffle.
Right.
So he probably didn't even know how to show love to anyone.
Right. And that's a good point that you brought up, because in order to forgive, sometimes you got to do self-assessment. I had to do a lot of that on my own. And then sometimes I had to indulge and go back into his own background, as you said, to try to figure out why did this come about. And as I did my research, biblical, me being a minister at my church, New Beginnings Community Church, with Pastor Michael Henderson, who's a wonderful pastor. But going to that church has helped me to understand a lot of this generation of curse and stuff that people pass down to their kids that they might not even know.
Right.
And as you had said, that was a good point of growing up with 15 other kids in the home. Carshell probably was a lot of argument, favoritism, and this one being forgot about, and this one kind of had to do their own thing. That sometimes I believe that you can grow up being bitter, being angry, being frustrated of the way you was raised. And some of us, like I've done in my lifetime, because of the way we've been raised, we instantly try to get in relationships. And I believe that this is what my dad did. I think that he was so glad to get from up under 15 other kids that he instantly got in a relationship, but not understanding that he was carrying a lot of baggage. And oftentimes when you carry a lot of baggage with you, you kind of put that baggage on people who cares about you, okay, because you're hurting and you don't know how to express it. And I believe that this was something that my dad wrestled with, as you said, not knowing how to express the love, but express it through a lot of discipline. And it was harsh discipline. It was discipline where sometimes I felt like I wish I was not living. There was discipline where sometimes I had intentions of thinking at certain nights that I could harm him before he harmed me. It's just all types of things that you go through. Well, finally, the abuse, it got so overwhelming that I wind up running away at the age of 16 years old. Lived on the streets of New York. Started surviving by watching people throw sandwiches away after they was eating them, and then I would go in the garbage and pick it out and finish off the sandwiches just to survive, so I didn't have to go back into that chaotic situation. School was a struggle for me because every time I would think, you know, it gets quiet, and when it gets quiet, instead of you adding up what's 2 + 2, that's not what you're hearing mentally. What you're hearing is all the screaming, all the yelling that was taking place in the home. So when it would get quiet in school and I had to study, that was a struggle for me. I would have to try my best, and it just didn't work. It led me to be a class clown in school. I would try to clown around and act out. And showing the teachers that I just didn't understand because I was going through other stuff. Later along in life, found out that that I had dyslexia. My dad didn't even know what that word meant. So it was times that because I couldn't write or pronounce stuff the right way, I would get chastised and get beat like crazy, this and that, because he thought this was the way to try to help me in school. Not knowing that some years later, find out that, you know, I got dyslexia. So, you know, as I said, I ran away in the streets of New York. That became a hard life because now it was between either me finishing school or not finishing school. Well, praise God, I did finish school.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I did finish school. I wind up, after coming off the streets in New York, this family took me in. I wound up staying with them, going to school, but passed with very, very low grades. But did get my diploma and passed. But that led to a life of criminal activity for me. I started stealing to survive, stealing my own food, my own clothes, you know, stuff like that. And you know, I remember a time when we stole, probably back in 1986, $30,000 worth of athletic gear. And
really?
that allowed me to get incarcerated. I had a son. I had a son at this time, and my son died on Christmas Day while I was incarcerated. So I mean, it just seemed as being born. It just seemed like it just was a lot of hell, and it just
felt like a curse.
Right, curse, a lot of drama, and you start wondering why this is happening, why that's happening, why this is happening. You know, got incarcerated. My son wound up passing away on Christmas Day. You know, still to this day, it's just floating around different stories of what happened. Some say he was accidentally killed, and some say that he might have been murdered, and this and that. They just never found out, you know, what really took place. The sad thing about it was I was incarcerated, and so being incarcerated and then knowing your son died on Christmas Day, that was trauma. And so the generation curse even started with me, because now the pain that I've been through with my parents, and then the pain that I've been through in the street myself, my son dying, when I finally got released, you know, you would think that this would slow a person up. Well, no, it's a generation, because now I went to alcohol and drugs to try to forget about the pain that I was going through. So some people wonder why there's people out there who's on drugs and who's on alcohol. I don't believe that everybody want an addiction. I don't believe that everybody wants to stay on that addiction, but I believe that if you take your time to talk to these people, as you're doing with me, you will find out that a lot of their addictions, whether it's addiction of eating, whether it's addiction of drugs, whether addiction of alcohol, whether addiction of gambling or sex, it comes from something that they're burying, that they don't want to release. And what happens is we substitute it with something else to try to stimulate us, to make us feel good, versus in the pain that we're going through. And that's what I did. You know, it led me to smoke weed, cocaine, crack cocaine. You know, I went on these drugs real hard, you know, because again, to be quiet and lead a normal life now was just abnormal to me. Why? Because to be quiet, I would sit around people and I couldn't see myself like them. I would think everybody was better than me because the life that I lived. So in order for me to feel good, you know, I would drink, you know, the bottle. I would snort cocaine. I would smoke crack cocaine, you know, this and that, man, to feel good, to forget about the problems, and to go out and party. And so that's what my life was about, you know, growing up in New York.
So how did Project Restoration come to birth? With all of this going on in your life, how did you turn it around to start this organization?
Project Restoration came about when I I prayed and I asked God, if he was real, what is it that he could do for a person like me after being through everything that I've been through. I left New York in '97, came down here to Charlotte. And one thing when I did leave New York and come down here, the drugs and the alcohol, God had delivered me from the drugs and the alcohol. In a criminal life, he delivered me from that. I wound up coming down here being delivered, but because I was in a new city, not really having a background or working this and that, the drug activity, not the drug activity, but the criminal activity wind up starting back. And it was a feeling when I got down here that was unsatisfied versus then being satisfied when I was in New York. And as I continued to pray and talk to God, I lived a life down here for 2 years that God allowed me to going back and forth, battling my old past versus the new life he was trying to give me. I came to a crashing point in some of the criminal activity that I was trying to do to survive. And I remember God told me that if I would surrender to him, that he had a plan for me. Well, I wind up turning my life over to God and getting myself on the right track, and it wasn't an easy thing. But I remember sitting up there thinking about everything that I've been through, and I remember one day God dropped in my spirit Project Restoration. And as I was sitting there, trying to discern what is it that God was saying, the project part is just God takes all of us, okay? And sometimes we want people to change overnight, okay?
And that does not happen.
And it doesn't happen. But if we can only know it don't happen, we so quick to throw away people and not understand grace, okay? But Project Restoration is, first of all, it's a project to take people's lives and try to transform them into what it is that God has meant for them to be on this earth. So that's a project. It's nothing that my organization understands that's just going to happen overnight. It's a project. The restoration part, that's what it's just a name, to restore. Restore them back to the love, the peace, the hope, and the joy. Because after people have been abused, neglected, being on alcohol and drugs, this and that, and especially being neglected from your parents, it's hard for you to understand whether or not God loves you.
Yeah, because there's an emptiness there.
Right. And sometimes the best way for we to understand the way God loves us, we try to remember how our parents loved us. Now, if you don't have that, you start thinking that God is a mean God. So Project Restoration job is to take young teenage boys, girls, and even some young adults off the streets, out of different facilities, and train them, reprogram their mind, and try to help them to be in a safe place to release the stuff that they've been through and not let the stuff that they've been through allow them to continue to operate on these addictions, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or whatever. And it's just a program where God put in my heart that he restored me, that now it was time for me to give back to the community.
Let's take a short break. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the things that you offer at this Project Restoration, okay?
Okay.
That's low. That's low. Look, he's blushing. Seriously.
Welcome back to Betty. I'm your host, Cynthia Thompson. I'm here with William, and William is sharing his story with us and how Project Restoration came to be. Now, before we went on break, you said that you help teenagers and young adults. What kind of things do you help them with?
Mentoring program. I realized that the first step is to let a person know that you want to mentor them. And that's with a lot of guiding, coaching, life skills. Just being a mentor, being a big brother, being a big sister, showing them and giving them the steps and the tools that they need so they can be successful.
Do you have volunteers come and mentor them, or do you have a staff there at your location?
I have volunteers who help me from time to time, to come in and help help me out with the kids that I'm working with.
Do you offer any services where the whole family can come together?
Yes, we have group session therapy, support groups, where the parents and the child could come together in a support group and talk about their issues and stuff that's going on with other family members. What I found out that when certain families come to support groups and they hear other families going through the same struggles that they're going through, it helps them feel better and release more issues that they're dealing with.
Tell me something, a question just popped in my head, and you may or may not know the answer to this, but why do you think so many kids are turning to drugs or violence or a lifestyle of crime today?
I believe, looking at my own life, that there's a 3-letter word that I use, and it's WHY. We never ask the kids why. We just judge them. We see their pants hanging down, we judge them. We see them drinking and smoking, we judge them. There's no love, okay? And when we don't show love and compassion and grace, okay, kids don't care about what you're trying to teach them. They want to first know you care, and even adults. And when people feel you don't care, they'll leave your organization, they'll leave your church, and they'll go right back into the world doing stuff that they know they shouldn't do, because the key word is they got to know that they're loved and people care about why they're going through what they're going through.
That makes sense. When you sit down and you really think about it. Because as a child, we all just want to be loved. Even adults just want to be loved and cared for, all of us. Now, I know that you have a lot of programs there. You mentioned a mentoring one there, and there's a long list. I want to just, let's talk about a few of them. Fatherhood training, what exactly is that?
Well, we can assume that we have to realize that a good feeling is a good feeling. And that's what sex is to a lot of people, good feeling. They didn't lay down and say, let's plan a family, okay? And so we have, unfortunately, we have people who birth kids when they're 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, even some 20 years old and some 30 years old. But watch this. But if they never seen a real father, okay, raise their child that wasn't raised in their home, they don't have a clue. They're only going to raise that child according to what they saw. So my program offers different structures, different program, different even mentoring with the father to help them to know how to rear their children in a better way and in a godly way versus in a way that they may think is a positive way. Because you got some dads who think that it's cool letting their son sit up there and watch Lil Wayne on TV while he's cursing and talk about women's body part. Then we wonder why when the child 5 years old, he's in the school cursing out teachers. So my job as Project Restoration and the owner is to try to help them to understand that they need retraining. Okay, the stuff that they learn and now pouring into their children, it won't work.
You know, that reminds me of a friend of mine. He's a single dad and he keeps his son a lot. And so they play this video game, Halo, where it's a lot of violence and cursing on there. And his son started cursing at 5, 6 years old. And now his son is out of control.
Wow.
And that's a prime example of how the fathers need to be a father, not a friend.
Right, correct.
So I think that's a good program that you offer there. You also have court hearing advocate. Now, do you go with them to court if by chance they have to go to court? Do you help them with a lawyer?
This one, this one is one I love. I love this one. I love getting dressed up and becoming their attorney. They asked me to come and represent them in my organization, that they've been in my organization. But more than anything, make sure they're being treated fair.
Right.
Because sometimes our kids go to jail and instantly, because of the crime or what they're on their file, they're instantly thrown away. So I'm kind of an advocate where I come to speak for them, that if they've been in my program and if they got off track, I come to court and I talk to the judge about what happened, how they was doing in the program, and it makes a big difference. Because what I saw in life, that there was a person who was facing, I think, about 2 years for drug paraphernalia, selling drugs, not just drug paraphernalia, but also having drug possession of drugs. And I talked to the judge for him. The judge put him on my program, put him in my program, and he turned his life around. And the judge wound up dropping the charges for him. So,
and you also have a drug rehabilitation group. Are you licensed to do that, or do you have someone that would come in and help counsel those kids that are on drugs? How does that work?
We have licensed clinician social workers in my office on Fairview Road that anybody who's been through any type of drugs, and we counsel them. After we counsel them, we offer support group for them. We offer other services that would help them to release the pressure of going back to the drugs.
I've asked you a lot of questions. Let's take a quick break so we can catch our breath, because I got even more for you.
Okay.
7,000 students drop out every school day. That's one every 26 seconds. It's time that students know that we believe in them.
Inspire a student and share your message of support at boostup.org.
Every book is an adventure waiting to come to life. Visit new worlds. Encounter new friends. And discover the power of reading. Go to read.gov to read A Princess of Mars, the first novel to feature John Carter. A new world awaits. Read.
Hi, welcome back to Better You. I'm your host, Cynthia. I'm here with William, and we're talking about this great organization that he is the CEO and founder of, Project Restoration. Now, William, before we went on break, we talked about some of the services that you offer. How do you find these kids, or do they just show up at your office? Are they through social services?
I get a lot of referrals from some from my church, some from the sheriff department. I had a program that I taught in the sheriff department, which I partner with the sheriff department, even with my program, and different kids that gets released. Some of the kids look me up and call me and come to the organization, so I continue to train them so they could lead themselves away from a life of crime. Some of it is through social service, through probation departments, just different agencies.
So, why did you really start this program? What are you getting out of it?
The benefit of allowing a teenager or a young adult not to have to go through what I've been through. A lot of my activity stopped at a later years of my life, and it brings joy to see a kid life turned around, where he was going down the wrong path and now being on the right path, and that's just through godly counsel, just through, again, being a friend to them, being a support to them. And it brings joy to see that this kid was once under pressure and now released from his pressure by now allowing that he's under Project Restoration, where there's hope, joy, and peace that could come into his life.
Sounds like you might have some success stories. Can you share one of those with us?
The success story that I have right now is that I'm just recently become an author. Yes, I just recently become an author, and I'm publishing a book about my life, and it's called From Hell to Grace.
Well, we got to get you to come back and talk about that then.
I will. Anytime you want me to, you just call me, and I will be right back here. I'll be right back.
So with your kids, any success stories with them?
I got a couple kids who went back home and they turned their life around, and their parents keeps in touch with me and be like, wow, I don't know what you did, but his life is totally different. I had one who went off to college. I had one who went off to signing up for the military, the service. And then I had one that just recently started his own business. He started he did graffiti, so he started his own graffiti company. And so, God is amazing at what we can do when we take our time to understand why that people do what they do.
One last question. Do you think your life would have been different had a program like this been in place?
Oh man, a better you. It's just what it is. If I would have had a better you could best believe my life would have been different. So I thank you for that show called A Better You.
Thank you. And I want to thank you so much for being on my show. I have learned a lot about your program, but before we close, if someone wanted to contact you, what is your phone number, your web address?
They can reach me at 704-840-7894, and it's www.projectrestorationinc.us.
And thank you again for being on my show.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to thank each and every one of you for watching my show, Better You, every Wednesday night here on Public Access 21. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.